All right, we're recording. Good morning.
Morning, Clyde.
Everybody, I got Mark Thompson on, a guy running for city council, correct?
That is right. Place 4.
Place 4. And you're a business owner here in Van.
I am.
What do you own?
Well, my wife and I own the Clean Brew, just around the
I
corner.
love the Clean Brew. I'm actually drinking Clean Brew coffee right now. Y'all can't see it because I got it in my coffee cup. And I've had a sign in my yard for years for Clean Brew.
I think you've had one for almost 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought it needed to be bigger.
Well, we didn't. Well, when we first got started, we weren't used to advertising.
Yeah.
Still not all that used to. And there's an ordinance, at least we were told of one of size, and we wanted to keep it down to the yard sign size.
Is there an arrow on it? I didn't think so.
No.
That's because I've had people ask me where Clean Brew was when they saw it, and it's like, it's down the road.
Of all the things that we could have done if we'd planned, and we didn't plan this with a lot of detail, location, was something, they always say location's the key, and we did not intend initially to put the coffee shop in.
Yeah.
We looked at the laundromat. It had been abandoned operationally after the tornado, and my wife and I we were riding by one day, and she just kind of leans up. She says, "We ought to buy that laundromat." It's like, what? She says, "No, I think we should. The neighborhood needs that." And so we started looking into it, and come to find out there was 2 parties looking at it, another one other than us. And we did not know it at the time, but they were friends of ours, and came out. We'd been looking at it for probably a month, found out that they were looking at it as well.
Yeah.
And long story short, decided to go in together. And it was their idea to bring the coffee shop along.
Oh, no kidding.
So I didn't know anything about coffee shops.
Yeah.
And we opened the laundromat first while we were still working on the coffee shop. And before we even got the coffee shop remodeled, they had other interests that were demanding their time. They realized they just couldn't do it. They couldn't run the coffee shop, and if we ran the laundromat. So our daughter was down in the Caribbean. She was living down there at the time. We said, "Hey, look, we thought about this. I think coffee shop is a good idea, but we don't know anything about coffee shops.
Yeah.
Would you come home and run it?" And she said, "Well, I was about to call you anyhow. I'm running out of money as a foreigner living down there." She says, "I can't get work permits and things." So
yeah.
She came back, took it over. It's all her creativity. Anything you see at Clean Brew that has to do with the coffee shop is our daughter, and she and her husband now run it.
Yeah.
Our granddaughter is being raised there. She's there all the time. And my wife and I basically have the laundromat side.
When you first started it, I saw it and I thought immediately that is a wonderful idea. I figured it was going to be a franchise right off the bat, because you took something that's existing, that's needed, and added something that you don't normally associate with washateria.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think that'll work.
I wish I could take credit for the idea, Clyde, but I can't. It was if somebody else's idea. It has worked very well for us,
because there's I mean, I don't know how well the coffee shop, because you're not in a really good location.
No, we're not.
But it seems to work. I mean, I've always thought Van needed a really good coffee shop. What you have going on there kind of takes part of the coffee shop thing away that I always liked, which was you go in, you sit down, you get on the Wi-Fi, you relax, you got like a bunch of beanbag chair type deal. And it's not called for in the situation that you have there, but you're not offended that it doesn't have that, because in your laundromat's always clean. And that was the first thing that I worried about when I thought about, okay, you're putting a coffee shop there that people go to buy drinks at, and then you have a laundromat. And laundromats are not always clean.
No, they're not.
Yours is bright and clean most of the time.
Well, we opened the laundromat as a ministry to the community. As I said, my wife, one of her primary reasons is the community needs this.
Yes.
She had seen, I'd never paid attention, but she had seen that parking lot full many times.
Oh, yeah.
And then after the tornado, nothing. It was literally abandoned. They did not reopen. The tornado happened in May. I think we bought it in September. But
Yeah.
that whole time it just sat there empty. And she said, "Well, we really need to do this." And we've talked to a lot of people after 5 or 6 years in business. You get to meet a lot of folks in town. We get to know most of our customers. We do a wash and fold, so we're in there quite a bit. And we haven't met anybody yet that can remember when that wasn't there.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, even when I was a little kid, my in-laws live across the street, Pam and Glenn Getty. And as long as I can remember going to Pam and Glenn, because I went to school with their son, Scott, and going to their house, the laundromat's right there. It's always been there.
It's always been there. And like I said, it's not the ideal location. It's not the location that you would pick out if you were going to start a business.
Correct.
But because it had the recognition, it was, I won't say ripe for the picking, because it took a lot of work. When we bought the laundromat, not one single piece, well, there was one dryer in the entire property that functioned.
Oh, goodness.
So none of the washers, the change machine, soda machine, all the vending machine, nothing worked. Water heater had been replaced within, I don't know, a year or two of our purchasing it. So it was relatively new, but it was basically a non-functioning business.
Man. Well, you're doing pretty good, because I've been down there, and that's one thing that I've always felt like since Clean Brew's been there, is that somebody is spending a lot of time making sure this place is clean and well kept, and you don't normally see that in a laundromat.
We've heard that from a lot of folks,
which to me brings clients back in there, and it's like anything else in your life. If somebody's taking the time to take care of something, other people help you take care of it. Versus when you go somewhere that's run down and dog, you just leave whatever you got laying there. So I think it's a good deal.
Well, it's working.
Yeah. And so that you were in van before that.
That is correct.
So tell me about you. What have you done in your life?
I don't think we have that much time.
We don't have that much time. So let's start with what brought you to van.
Well, what brought me to van, all 3 times, I guess, was Mercy Ships.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I joined the Mercy Ships ministry over down in Garden Valley back in 96. So we were here for a season in 96 for our initial training. Our 3 oldest children were in the Van School District at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Then we finished our training time and we left. We were gone for a year, came back in 97 for another series of training. We were here for another 6 months. And again, the same 3 children went to school again in Van.
Mm-hmm.
Then we left Christmas of 1997 and moved to Nicaragua.
Okay.
So we were down there for 7 years. Came back in 05. Yeah, January of 05. Our 2 eldest by that time had graduated and moved on. They went back to live with relatives and study. They went to college in Pennsylvania.
Is that where you're originally from?
Originally, I'm from Western Pennsylvania.
Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, my wife and I grew up in the same small hometown church.
Oh, no kidding.
So we've known each other since we were little.
Yeah.
Didn't start dating until we were both out of high school, but we basically grew up with each other. And then we had the 2 youngest ones with us, and they had been homeschooled while we were out of country.
Yeah.
Integrated into the Van system here. And I do need to put in a plug for the Van School.
Oh,
District. Yeah. Incredible. We had, because of our moving around, we had a number of schooling experiences. And Van, and at that time, Mr. Dunn, I believe, was the first time he was the principal over at the junior high.
Yeah, junior high.
Yeah, before he moved over. And then when we came back in 05, our 2 youngest were, I believe, in 5th and 6th. So they started the intermediate school wasn't built yet. So I'm not sure which campus they went to.
Yeah, the intermediate school wasn't built. The junior high was built at that time.
Correct.
So it went from here, the elementary school, to the junior high, to the high school.
I think that's how the progression went. And I think they probably both started over at the junior high, or maybe the younger one was in the school over here behind you. They both went through the high school.
Yeah.
Both graduated at Van. Both left for a while. My daughter went on to a year's worth of mission service. She went around the world for a year. and then wound up in the Caribbean and stayed there for a while, and then came back.
Have you had the same house this whole time?
We bought the house in 2005 when we first moved here.
Okay.
You know, so that was another interesting story. But we didn't have property while we were overseas.
Oh, okay.
And didn't have any equity anywhere to transfer in. We'd moved around quite a bit. In fact, the last 2 places we lived in the U.S. were rentals. So when we came back here, it was basically starting over.
Yeah.
And we settled here because of Mercy Ships, but we intentionally picked the Van School District because of us. We'd had such a good experience.
The Van School District is a draw. I'm telling you, it's what they're doing, especially with our I forget what it's called, the open district. It's a draw for a lot of people.
It is, and it should be. The thing that discourages me sometimes is people will come in from out of state, or at least out of this region, and they will have pre-selected the Lindale School District because of its reputation. And I don't know that much about the Lindale School District. Of course, we've got friends that have kids over there, but it was, for some reason, the information they were getting was downplayed here in Van. And Van's a great school district.
So hold on, you're saying that if you go to look at realtor places and this and that, they play up Lindale and then they downplay Van?
I don't think it's anybody here in town.
Yeah.
But we've talked to a number of people that said, Van, they said it's just not the quality of school education.
Oh, goodness.
And I contest that. I can speak otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't heard that. Oh, yeah, I do.
Here.
We've got
grandkids here now.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from our grandkids' experience, or at least my daughter-in-law's experience of moving here, they moved within the last 3 years. That's the other thing. All of our children have come here. They've all moved here. So now we've got everybody
that's
in
a
the
good
close
thing.
circle.
That's a very
but she'll
good
tell
thing.
you that, the school system is just phenomenal.
I have family that's in the school district, and I'm a big fan of Don Dunn. Every time that man has done something, he's either did what I would have done or did what I wished I would have thought about to do, because he is on top of his game, especially when it comes to our district. But I'm seeing, I'm seeing a lot of people come to the district and for school to get their kids in the type of environment that we have here in Van, and then trying to move. And they're having a hard time doing that because of the housing market and everything. But we're seeing quite a bit.
Right.
And we're also, I just recently found this out from my son. He plays baseball, that some towns don't have the sports and extracurricular activities that we have. And their parents are moving their kids here just for those. Like, I think Mineola doesn't have a baseball team, not a varsity or junior, a varsity or junior baseball team. So their kids that's their game is baseball. They're actually transferring to Van for baseball. And in my mind, as they keep going, the parents are going to say, yeah, let's move over there where all these people are we see them all the time.
Well, Van's growing. We'll eventually get to talk about this morning about Van's growth, but Van is growing, and for a variety of reasons. I believe that the school system is one of them. I think quality of life is one of them. And I think when folks try it out, they like what they experience.
Definitely.
We've got a number of folks at the laundromat. I don't know numbers, but I would say there is a significant number of people just within the last probably 2 years that are customers at the laundromat because they're living in an RV.
Yeah.
And they've either bought property and the cost of materials just went skyrocket and they're outside their budget right now to build, or they're located here because they like this area and they're basing out of their RV to just scope out properties, lifestyles. They want to just check into it more.
That's something that I've never understood, the RV market. I have friends, and I've helped back in my construction days. I helped quite a few people build RV lots, and I had a cousin that was going to build one outside of town. I've never understood. Now, I got a lot of stuff. If you can't see, an RV is not going to be good for me. But I know a lot of people, and it's the RV deal has just never made sense to me. but they're so big. You see RV parks popping up everywhere.
It's kind of like the Field of Dreams. You build it and they'll come.
Yeah.
It's incredible right now how many RV parks are popping
up.
And
Van doesn't have an RV park, correct?
They do not. It's something we've talked about in the planning for the future. I think it would be good for us to have one.
Yeah, because I know that my cousin was going to try to build one right outside of town. And the reason he was going to do it is because of First Monday. All these people coming to First Monday and everything being full on First Monday. And we're an easy distance to First Monday. Right. And then they opened that wagon wheel up. It would have been, I think, less than 5 miles away from where he was going to build his. That wagon wheel RV park there on 20. Mm-hmm. And he stopped. And he actually sold his property and did other things with his life. But it just seems like that's something that's really going on right now. And you would definitely see those people because the RVs don't have washing machines and dryers and all that in it. So
I don't know how long the trend's going to last, but I agree. Right now, it's a hot market.
It's very hot market.
You just driving into Tyler from here, I can think of 2 or 3 that at least I didn't notice. I think they've popped up within the last year.
Yeah,
and they look to be full.
Yeah, they are.
So they hung a shingle, and I don't know how the word gets around. But
I've seen you drive by and all of a sudden you see them out there working on the dirt, and you see a sign, and you know, okay, there's an RV park coming there. Then the next time I go through, it's almost slap full.
Yep.
And well, my brother, exactly what you were talking about. My brother turned around and took our family land out in the Jamestown area and went in and cleaned everything back up and is going to build a house, but everything is so expensive. He went and bought a big RV and put it out there and moved his family in.
I think a lot of folks are doing that.
And he's building the house as he goes, but right now they're living in an RV. Right. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a big fisherman, and I know he planned this out long term. He thought, you know what, I can get an RV now, and then my wife will get a house, and then when I get done with that house, I get to take the RV and go fishing all the time. That my brother's thought pattern. He's a builder, and he would always have fishing poles in his truck. And I'm like, Bubba, what are you doing? I mean, you're working. He's like, yeah, but you never know. Somebody might have a good little pond where I'm working.
I've never been that kind of a fisherman.
I ain't either. I haven't either. My little brother is. That boy will throw a lure so fast, and it's I guess to him, it's the enjoyment. That's what he loves. It's like me in technology. I mean, when I see a new computer or a new electronic system, I'm excited. I mean, when that comes in a box, I'm super. When he sees a pawn, he's thinking, what kind of bass are in that sucker? I wonder when because this is what he really likes. The last time somebody actually caught something out of there, because those fish just keep growing and growing and growing. But you're right about the RV thing. Well, let's get on that. So, some of the things that me and you originally talked about was that Van has a growth pattern that it's going through right now.
I don't know how much of a pattern it is, but it's a growth spurt.
Yeah.
And because of a lot of things that are going on in East Texas and in the country, I mean, there's an incredible migration of out-of-staters that are locating to Texas. And this is one of the areas, I don't know about West Texas, but around here, there's a lot of folks coming in from elsewhere. They like what Texas still is.
Oh yeah.
And it's a conservative arena. It's a good place to raise their kids or to influence their grandkids. It's a still friendly area for business.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of incentives for people to to check out and eventually move to Texas. So it's growing. We've seen that over the last couple of years. I don't think it's going to slow down much.
I don't feel like that either.
You see the metro areas are growing. I can't quote the source because I don't remember it, but we learned within the last probably 6 months that whoever they is, have targeted or predicted that Tyler is going to be the next major metropolitan growth area.
Major metropolitan growth area like Dallas and San Antonio?
They didn't say how big, but it's the area that's probably the hottest in the real estate market and business market right now for growth in Texas.
I remember when I was working at the radio station Tyler was the biggest growth factor for seniors and they were marketing to that. When me and Barbara
Because
Bass,
of healthcare.
yeah, me and Barbara Bass sat down at one time and we talked about this because of the healthcare that we have in the Tyler area. It was pulling a lot of people, and my wife works in the healthcare industry. It was pulling a lot of people to come and move here because of the things that they had. And the same thing. And if Tyler grows, we grow, because I don't know the number, but I'm pretty sure 90% of the people in Van that work that live here don't work here.
Town.
Yeah, we all drive.
There's certainly a high percentage of those that are employed outside of the home that are also employed outside of Van.
Yeah, and excuse me, it's good for us.
It is.
There's more jobs out there because we know we're driving back here every day, and the roads are getting better. I mean, 49's not, but the roads are getting better between here and there. You consistently see them work on the roads that way because they know that's where we're driving.
Well, last week we had a 2-day workshop here for the public in Van to just entertain input for the new plan. It's the ordinances that are backing up the plan.
Well, what plan is that?
That's our new comprehensive plan that was adopted by City Council back in November.
Okay.
And we can circle back to that.
All right.
The point is, we met an individual that worked with the state transportation, and he says, we've heard rumors of it before, but he confirmed that 20 is going to be widened in the not too distant future.
So a 3-lane?
A 3-lane,
yeah,
in each direction. He gave the markers, and I think roughly it was Longview and working towards Terrell.
Okay.
So 20's going to get widened eventually, and they're seeing a lot of traffic.
Oh yeah.
And if there was 2 years ago, we hired a consultant as a city to do some work, and if my memory serves me correctly, they determined that there were 40 to 45,000 cars more each day that passed our intersection out here with the Loves than passed the 69 interchange over in Lindale.
No kidding.
So there's 45,000 more cars that are getting off at either Hideaway or 110 and shooting down to Tyler 49 or getting off at 69. They didn't necessarily mean that they make it all that way. That's a lot of new traffic, a lot of additional traffic. So that's one of the reasons that I believe Love picked this place to put a second one in, just because of that extra traffic.
Yeah, and I mean, not like truck stops and everything else. It provides a service at a good spot.
It does.
I mean, I don't necessarily like truck stops, and I stop at a lot of truck stops.
But you do.
It doesn't, but it does. And the thing that's going on over there, you got the truck stop, you got Dairy Queen, you got our new hotel, and I really like our new hotel. I haven't been in it yet, but
I have, and it's shortly after it opened, and it's a very, very nice facility.
Oh, I've had from friends stay there, and they told me it was nice. And then what we got going on across the street, we're starting to build over there finally.
Correct. On the southeast corner, that has sold.
Yeah.
There's going to be a pilot. Victrona is the parent company, but there is going to be a pilot.
Do you feel like that side of 20 is going to fill up too?
I do.
Do you really?
I do. There's a part of it is because of that 45,000 extra vehicular traffic coming by our intersection. Part of it is because of the growth that's already happened. You see, Love's took a somewhat of a gamble when they built the hotel.
Yeah.
Okay. Marriott built it, but it's my understanding that the original plan was something smaller and lower down on their chain.
Yeah.
Marriott has those different steps of service, and it was the horse farm's influence that basically got it to upgrade to what we have here.
I haven't, and I could be wrong, but I haven't. When we go to Lindale quite a bit to eat, which is not always a good thing, but we do. I see a lot of the horse farms people in Lindale. I very rarely see the horse farms people here.
Well, I don't think there's as much in as far as the franchise restaurants, particularly bigger shopping. I mean, whether you agree with Walmart or not, it is a one-stop shopping.
It is.
And it attracts a lot of folks. Not that the horse farm people would be going to Lowe's, but you got a big box store for, your building materials and such. We don't have anything like that here, so I think it's natural that they would go that way for a lot of the amenities that they would be looking for. But the owner of the horse farm was on our she's still serving on the Economic Development Council.
Okay.
And Kathy told me a number of years back that one of the things that a lot of the horse people will look for, and will take the time, is to go outside of just even a small geographic sphere for something unique, something new, especially for an eatery. So if there's a one-off, family owned, something's got a reputation, it would be nothing for them to travel 45 minutes or an hour to go have that experience and then come back to
and that's what they're looking for.
Yes, sir.
I mean, when you go, I do the same thing. When I go out of town, I'm not looking for another Solosky. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Because, the other day, we wanted street tacos, and Telly's is not known for street tacos, but I went ahead and ordered, I think it was 30 street tacos to go from Telly's the other day. And of course it was a Sunday and they were super packed. So I had to stand there for a minute or two, and Van gets a lot of people off 20, even to Telly's. Cause there was some people in there, and the reason it made such a big deal on me, this woman was being rude as hell. Everything she seen, like somebody had put their cowboy hat on top of the cooler in there. And she first commented on, oh, look at that. These people still got morals. And I look at her and I think, yeah, we still got morals. And then she just goes to ridiculing everything about Van being backwoods. And dude, I almost come unglued. I just stood there because I looked at her husband, because you could tell my eyes were getting mad. And because she started talking about the name. Vandals. I'm surprised they still have that name. And I looked at her and I looked at her husband, because I was raised different. I'll say something to your husband, I ain't finna say something to you. And her husband just hightailed it right out the door, which told me at that point,
you're embarrassing us.
Yeah. And she he's used to this. So I'm going to let him. And I just sat there, and it was eating me alive not to say something. But in situations like that, you're not going to change someone's mind in 2 seconds that's being rude. So I come back and tell my wife says, I wish I would have been there. I would have said something. I'm going to say, I'm glad you weren't. I did not want you to say nothing. But speaking, I mean, we have a lot of people coming in here.
I was in Tully's last night for dinner, and it was full. I think there was 2 tables that had space, and I don't know everybody in town by any means, but I didn't recognize hardly anybody that was in there.
We got a lot of people. Now that's pretty strong coffee there. That's a Black Rifle Beyond Black.
Beyond Black.
Yeah.
I left a little cream in the bottom.
Well, good, because that is a very strong coffee. That's some of that Black Rifle I get in the mail. I love it. But as we're growing in Van, is there, because you were talking about what's been going on, but is there a trajectory? Is there do we know, is Van going to grow towards Grand Saline? Is Van going to grow up and down 20? Where's our industrial base going to go? Where are we putting new houses? Are we just going to hodgepodge it? Whoever's got the money is going to build a house here and hope it works out, or what's going on with that?
Well, excellent questions. And realizing that Van is growing and we do want to have some planned for growth, we've tried to address those things. Go back about a year or so, the city council solicited for volunteers to help with the drafting of what they called a master plan. There was, I think, 6 of us that put our hand in the air, so we'd like to give it a hand, and the city hired a consultant to guide the process, and we started to look at what Van had, what people liked about Van, what they wanted to make sure we kept or protected as Van's growing, and then put together some sort of a roadmap for growth. Yeah, we did realize that we're short on rooftops. There's a lot of there's a lack of housing. Here in Van. Now the last couple of years, I'd say probably the last 3 years, there's been a lot of properties move. There's been a lot of investing. I don't know how the percentages, but I heard at one time that 40% of van is a rental market.
What?
So I know there's a lot of rental property.
Yeah.
I'm not against rental property. I think 40% of your available housing being rental is out of skew.
I didn't
I
know
don't think
that.
it should be quite that high. But there's a shortage, and people are willing to pay to be in this area. So we have a shortage of houses. We had a realtor on our committee.
Mhm.
We had Danny Morrow from the school. Danny's the guy that keeps track of growth,
Yeah.
past growth, projected growth. The school's got to be years in out, ahead in their planning.
Oh yeah, they have to be, because they have to decide how many.
How are they going to?
That's right.
Handle all the influx of students, and Van has a projection to grow. It the plan we wrote, and by the research, and we've had several consultants over the years in marketing and development, and the projection is we could easily get to 25,000.
Okay.
I don't know
what are we at right now?
Last census I heard, we were about 2,800.
2,800. Okay.
Right.
And 25,000.
It could go that high. I don't think anybody wants it to go that high.
Okay, but 25,000. Are we moving the city limits?
Eventually, the city would have a prerogative to move the limits, but it's not projected right now. You've got the city where the city limits are set right now, and then there's the ETJ, which is the extra. I should have wrote it down before we came. It's a concept that I was not familiar with before we moved to Texas, and it's basically the half-mile band that goes around the city limits.
Okay.
Which it's extra territorial jurisdiction.
Oh, okay, I got you. ETJ.
Okay, it's ETJ, and the plan that has been developed and adopted by City Council does not go beyond the ETJ, the current ETJ. Now, this plan was also meant to be dynamic. It's supposed to be reviewed on an annual basis, maybe even re-edited on a 2 to 3 year plan schedule. That will be up to City Council to manage. They'll be the caretakers of that long-term plan. It wasn't ever meant to be something that would be written and used for eternity, or worse, like the one in 2007 that was written. I have a copy I've seen. It's about a 3-inch binder, and it's full. I mean, the leaves are parallel, 3 inches thick, of the master plan that was developed
That's big
for Van. And something that's 3 inches thick, you can probably guess what happened to it.
It didn't get read.
No, didn't get read by anybody. It was sitting on a shelf. So we wanted something that would be usable, dynamic, small enough that people would read it and understand it, could understand it, and it would be something that we would want to keep current.
Yeah,
and that was the principle that we went into it. We had these city workshops. They weren't hearings. We just opened it up to the citizens of Van, 2 different days last year in the movie house. Excuse me. I think we had somewhere in the vicinity of 60 people come.
Oh, really?
The 2 sessions. Yeah,
I wondered how the turnout was.
Well, it was really good. It was really good. Got a lot of good information. There were a few people that came to just see what was going on. There was a couple people that came to fear-driven.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make sure something didn't happen. But I would say that the vast majority, if not all of them, left feeling positive about the direction.
Good.
So we took that input, incorporated it back into the plan. And then that's what became adopted by City Council as the 2021 Van Comprehensive Plan.
Okay.
So if you ever hear the comprehensive plan and the master plan, it's an inter exchange of the two.
Okay.
The 2 words, but officially it's the 2021 Van City Comprehensive Plan. Now let's come forward to, that was November, it was adopted. We took Christmas month off in December, and in January we started to put together the backbone for the plan.
Okay.
And there are 3 ordinances that are being currently developed by a broad spectrum of folks. There's folks from the Planning and Zoning Commission. They're eventually going to be the caretakers of the ordinance. You've got the Ordinance Development Committee. We just call them the Ordinance Committee. There's 3 individuals from Van, again, volunteers that have been working on that for a couple years now. I think it's about 2 years old. And what they did is they've been taking either the ordinances that were already established in Van or challenges that weren't governed by an ordinance, doing the research mostly from local areas, you know, here in East Texas. What are other people doing? What are other towns doing? And drafting new ordinances for the city council.
Okay.
Everything has to be with any of the boards that exist. You got Parks and Rec, you got Planning and Zoning, and you've got the EDC. Those are the library as a board. So there's 4 boards there, and then you got these operating committees. And the Ordinance Committee has been working on those issues that we need to address.
Yeah.
And we've got a code enforcement officer in town who's also our fire marshal, Jeff Hudgens.
I know Jeff.
Incredibly sharp guy.
Yeah, he is.
And Jeff has been just great through this whole process. And he's basically saying, look, guys, I don't make up the rules. I'm supposed to be enforcing them. What I need is clarity. I need to make sure that none of the ordinances are in conflict with each other, because you can't put me in a position where I'm having to interpret between conflicting ordinances.
Yeah.
So this whole process has been an effort to clarify and establish things that would just be, in my mind, good order for living.
Yeah.
It's not to restrict people. In fact, we've the multi zone use, the hybrid is called. It's a hybrid zoning ordinance that we've been working on. We drew from another city, and we've been working through it. It's 107 pages long. We've just been working through it as a committee, saying that's not Van. Yeah, we like that. That would be too restrictive, and just kind of rather than sit down and try to generate everything from scratch, take somebody else's work and massage it.
We all might not want Van to be Lindale or Mineola or Grand Saline, but there's things about Mineola, Lindale, and Grand Saline that we can all look at and say, hey, look, they're doing it right there, but they're not doing it right here. Let's take that one piece from Mineola. Let's say Mineola's downtown district. Let's take that and incorporate some of that here in Van. Or let's take Lindale's streets and incorporate some of that here in Van, or how they're dealing with 20. I mean, we're closer to 20 than Lindale is closer to 20.
Correct.
So they've got more area for growth to keep that a lot of people out of their town, but their downtown is steadily growing. And I don't know if that's just because you got Miranda Lambert stuff there and she funneling that money in, but I see other businesses that are growing off of that. And then you take the existing. The candy shop is still open in Lindale.
Right.
You're talking about the washateria. I can remember, as far as I can think back, it's been here. The candy shop in Lindale, as far as I remember, it's been there.
They just celebrated a significant milestone, and I want to say it's decades old.
Yeah. But how does that happen? How do you construct business so something like that doesn't have a huge market? It's not pulling. We don't have any people walking downtown all the time. Lindale doesn't either, but that candy shop is still open.
Right.
So
I think there's a couple things that play into that, Clyde, and it's interesting. You should bring that up. Over the since we, maybe even before we had the laundromat, but my wife and I would take drives. And one of the things that we noticed was if you drive 80, some towns survived and some of them are just not much more than ghost towns.
Yep.
Half their buildings are boarded up. There's some towns just seem to have the magic, you know. And looking into any one of those that we've researched, somewhere along the line, there was a champion that had a vision that just wouldn't let go of it.
Yeah.
And they've been a catalyst for seeing proper growth. Something that would be that somebody that understood business knows that you need tax revenue. Okay. You need sales tax. I mean, we've only got 3 sources of revenue here for town. We've got our sales tax.
Yeah.
We've got a portion of the property tax that Van Zandt County collects, and we've got water that the city sells you pay for your water and sewer services.
That's our only three revenues?
Those are the only three revenues that I'm aware of.
Man.
Now, you've got opportunities for grants and things like what was the park over here, the new McMillan Park.
Mm-hmm.
That was leveraged. It was a matching grant from, I believe it was the state Parks and Rec, but city had to come up with the first half.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, the provision was there to use the value of the land. And when the McMillan family donated it to us, whatever the appraised value was became our donation, our matching. Okay. So that's why we have the McMillan Park over
It's nice.
It is very nice.
It's nice.
I don't think it has quite as many of the features that were originally hoped for, but everything that's been done was done quality.
Yeah.
And they didn't go in debt to do it.
Okay? Which is a big thing.
So I think it's good management.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't have a problem with our current city council. I've told people, they say, well, what are you running against? I'm not running against anybody.
Yeah.
Or anything. I've been backing this city council since, I helped elect most of it.
Yes.
I've been supporting this city council, or the sitting city council, but even its predecessors for the last 6-7 years.
So let's get into that real quick, because with you, I can cover so much.
You're gonna have to swing back around if you want me to visit, though.
I will go. We will. But why are you running for the city council?
I'll tell you why I'm
Pull that mic towards you just a little bit more. There you go.
I'm running for 3 basic reasons.
Okay.
First, I like what our city council has been doing. They were dealt, I think, a bad hand of cards, frankly, after the tornado. We were not in good shape.
Yeah.
They've done a lot. The first thing was hiring a city manager that had experience in this sort of thing. But since the tornado, the city's had to basically completely rebuild its infrastructure.
Oh, we have.
All the water wells. I think there's 2 of them. I think the city has 5. I think there's 2 of them that still need redone, but it's big ticket items.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have it in the budget right now. You've got all of your overhead storage has either been refurbished, replaced, or new construction. You got the one out there on the city property that you can see from the highway. The water lines are old. A lot of them are running in the streets, which is one of the reasons a lot of the streets are not getting done yet, because it's not a matter of just chewing up the old asphalt and repaving it type of thing. All the old utilities are under the city. They're laying in the city. That should have never happened.
Yeah.
Should be in a right of way. And this city manager and city council backing him is saying, we don't want all of those lines laying under brand new streets.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons it took so long to get Ohio done. Ohio had all of its utilities in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just a matter of repaving, which is expensive to start with, but they had to move all that infrastructure, your water and sewer lines. I don't know if there was communications under the street or not, but they had to get it over on the side into the right of way. Pennsylvania was done after the tornado. We were fortunate to be living, and we still live on Pennsylvania, but to see that happen and get that redone, because it was a mess after the tornado. Oh, yeah. But 2 things happened. One, became a racetrack the day they paved it, and I've been told Ohio's the same way.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22 in redoing streets, especially long ones. Yeah, I was young once too, and I'm not saying it's just the young people, but the tendency to push it a little harder on a smooth street. Is there.
It is, and our Van PD is pretty good about that. I'll be honest, it's our Van PD's been pretty good about staying on top of that and patrolling.
They can't be everywhere.
They can't.
So I'm not complaining at all. I know a number of the Van City police officers, respect them a lot. They can't be everywhere. That's kind of a catch-22 about redoing the streets. But the other thing on Pennsylvania is our utilities run down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd had that thing repaved a year when they had to cut in probably a section that was 12 or 15 feet by 12 or 15 feet, go down and find a broken water line.
Nope.
Now we got a patch in a brand new street.
You do.
And you just can't patch the way it was when it was repaved.
You cannot. So that is something, and I've worked in that sector a long time ago, and Corsicana, numerous towns throughout East Texas, we went in and did just that. We would go in and move the utilities to the right of way, but when you're doing something like that, when you're already there, when you're already moving it, You spend more money because you're upgrading. You're not going to put the same size pipe in if you're looking for growth.
Absolutely.
You're going to go with a larger pipe. You're going to go with better laid sewer lines.
You're expecting growth, and that's.
And when was some of the sewer lines laid in Van? I mean, we probably still got tile sewer lines in Van.
I know we have some tile sewer lines in Van.
And so some of the growth that's going to happen is going to be upgrading this stuff if we're going to stay how we are now. And this is what I worry about, is that some of the towns that you look at that hit a growth spurt, they grew out in one sector. So, for example, they grew out in the 20 region, and everything on the 20 side has new water, new electricity, new sewage, and then the rest of the town is still dealing with the same stuff they were dealing with before. Is that how Van's going to grow? Or are we going to grow in more of a sphere? Is the town itself going to rise up, or is one area going to get the most of what's going to happen?
Well, that's yet to be seen. It's a valid concern, and I believe that the plan and the new ordinances address just that. We know that what we call the I-20 corridor,
yes,
is growing. You can see it growing already. The EDC several years ago funded the utility easement under the highway. It was a rather expensive proposition, but we knew the south side of I-20 was going to be growing, so we put the conduit in.
Yeah.
So from basically would be the north side of 20 to the south side of 20, you've got the conduits and the utility pipes are in the ground.
Yeah.
That's already taken care of. Now, they're not connected to the system yet.
Okay.
So those that are on the north side will probably be a combination of city and developer initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Everything on the south side is intended to be developer. We've extended the system over there. So now as you're building your site, we want you to work into your plans to take, to complete the system on that side. Now, eventually we're going to have, and I think the return conduit is on further down the highway or going east. I'm pointing it, you can't see on TV, but on the screen, but going east towards Lindale, there's another set of conduits for the return.
Okay.
Eventually, we want to have the water on a loop.
Yeah.
Water systems work better when they're exercised, just like a house or a car. They're not meant to sit.
No, they're not.
So it's a loop, and that has been a plan by our city manager and the sitting city council to make those improvements ahead of time, so we're ready for when that growth comes, and we are now.
That's smart. I'm going to tell you, I'm very proud of that, because I've worked construction way back in the day, and that was something when you show up to these towns and they're like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and patch that pipe. And you look at the pipe and you think, neither side of this pipe is good.
Right.
But you do what you got to do with that situation. And Van making those decisions now. And this is what I'm getting. And I've done quite a few of these interviews at this point where you're on. What I'm getting from everyone is everyone realizes Van is growing now. And the question is how we're going to grow.
Right.
It's no longer. And how, when I was going to school here in Van didn't want to grow. Van didn't want anything to happen here.
There's still people that would rather it didn't.
Well, we all want it. And I think it's because we want to keep what we have.
And that's the whole premise behind the plan that's been written and adopted, is we want to keep the things that we love about Van.
Oh, yeah.
Van. But realizing it's going to grow, whether we like it or not.
Well, it's got to.
Let's guide it.
And everyone here, including me, I try to spend as much money, even if I got to pay extra money, in Van.
To shop it and stay in town.
That's right. Because I know it helps someone else here. I recently did it. I bought some things from someone that has a business here that cost me more than if I would have went somewhere else. But I know that money's going back in my community.
Right.
But if we don't have the things here, then we can't bring the money back here. And I'm not saying I want a Walmart in Van at all. But we have to help businesses grow in Van. And I don't know what we're doing on that. I don't know what kind of businesses we're trying to get to come to Van. Do we even have someone that is trying to entice businesses to come to Van?
Thankfully, I can say yes now.
Who is that?
Our new EDC director, Tammy Weidman, I believe is her last name. Delightful lady. She came to us from Grand Saline. Her last working position, although it had been cut to part time, was the downtown Grand Saline project, where they were upgrading. That's not the name of it. The name escapes me right now. I don't know if you've noticed on social media feeds within the last. I think she just joined us in January or early February. It's already changed the image of what I think the EDC is trying to do. And so it will be the EDC in conjunction with the city, particularly the city manager, to recruit people, industry, service businesses to Van. What we want to make sure is we've got something that they can land on.
Yeah.
There's a couple areas that I've been had a specific interest in. One is small businesses.
Yes.
I mean, we're a small business owner, but we know we do need businesses that employ folks.
We do.
Our little coffee shop is for the most part part-time and family members, which is one of our goals when we established the coffee shop. But we need places that will employ skilled labor.
Yeah.
Bring people that will bring families and be positive contributors to our community. The other thing is, and I think the pandemic really put this in the forefront for folks. There were a lot of us. Sorry for the English teachers listening. There were a lot of us that were working from home. There's a lot of home offices in town.
Oh yeah.
And there's an infrastructure that has been challenging. Well, you're here. You know what the internet situation is.
Correct.
There are certain things that we could be and should be doing. We got to do them in the priority order, because there's always, there's 100 things yelling for the next $10 worth of, attention. But communication and zoning that will allow what I would call the home front cottage industry.
Yeah.
The office. So that's been one of the biggest discussions that we've been having in the ordinance side of the house.
Well, and everybody, honestly, this thing I got going on here, it's never made any money. We don't sell anything. But me, just like every other high school kid out there that has an idea with electronics or VR or games, they see the big icons all started in a garage.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, hey, I can, even me, I'm not expecting to make something huge out of what I do here. But at the same point in time, I'm standing on the backs of some great people that has made tremendous things out of a garage.
It's never been as probable any time in our history of making something out of a garage-based business.
You're exactly right.
You look at these young people that are graduating from high school. Some of them already have their businesses before they're graduating, and my hat's off to them.
Oh, they do. I've met some of them.
I love the initiation.
Man,
yeah.
Our school is turning out some winners, and I will tell you that right now.
They are. And we want to do a better job of partnering with the school as a city and getting those young people involved.
Yeah.
They've got good ideas.
Which goes into something that me and you recently talked about that I've been talking with everybody out. We don't have anything in the city for a big block of our kids. We got parks for little kids. We got some stuff for adults, but that teenager area, Van has never had anything for, and we still don't have anything for.
And that comes up so often, Clyde, having 4 kids now, they're all adults, but I remember distinctly each one of them graduating from high school and that whole, what am I going to do next? Or, what's my high school experience been like as far as preparing me for life? And especially my younger two, they've always wanted to see something, in town that would be something for their age. Now, the disc golf course is probably the closest we've come in recent.
And that's a good start
over there. It's a good start, but we don't want to say, oh yeah, that box is checked off.
Please don't.
No, we've got more to go. But I think the young people know what their age group anyhow needs.
Yeah.
There was, when my son was a senior in high school here, there was somebody that came in and facilitated a discussion with the seniors. If you could, what would you recommend that Van would develop? What would you like to see in Van?
Yeah.
And it's been a couple years since he told me this, but I think as I remember it, there was probably 10 or 15 ideas that those seniors came up with as suggestions for what Vane could really use that would address the challenges of their age group, either for while they're in high school or shortly after. And my son tells me today not a one of them was ever implemented.
You told me that when we originally talked, and it's been playing in the back of my brain this whole time. I don't know if we're still doing that, but I'm going to be honest. I think that should be on some board or somebody's thing to do once a year, every year, and then compare them. Go 10 years. Look at it. If you're getting the same suggestions for 10 years, 10 separate groups of kids suggesting the same thing, and you haven't done one of those things,
on us.
We're failing.
Yeah.
We are definitely failing.
One of the things that's come out of this planning that we're working on now, we have made the suggestion. We haven't codified how we're going to actually implement it, but it's our intention to include students from our high school system on these different boards and committees.
That'd be good.
Now, they're not going to be able to vote because the state does regulate. You got to be a voting age and things. But there's nothing that we're aware of that says you can't be on an advisory board and be there. And we owe it to our young people to listen.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they've got good ideas. I think for the most part, they haven't been tainted yet with what can't be done.
That's a big thing.
If you've got, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that's saying, well, you've been telling us the world's ours.
Yep.
I mean, they've got access to all this technology. They really can do a lot.
That's right.
We need to be listening to them.
And I think the school will facilitate that. I'm going to be honest. I'm really sure the school will facilitate that.
I'm absolutely certain of it. And regardless of how the city council election comes out, I'm sure that is not going to get dropped.
Yeah,
there's several folks that are in place or running that really believe that's a significant part of what our solution is going to be for long-term planning.
Oh yeah.
So you asked me why I'm running.
Yes,
that's the second part.
Okay.
One, I really do approve of what city council's been doing, and I want to see that maintained. They've got a lot of challenges. I've been there when they were developing the budgets. I've been there when they've been discussing and approving the budgets. I've been in the council meetings when there's anomalies that come up that weren't in the budget.
Yeah.
And they've got to be handled. You're in business, it's just, you can plan all day long. It's the stuff you weren't planning on that's going to bite you.
Oh yeah.
So I know what their challenges are, and I want to see that. I want to see them supported and continue that.
Mm-hmm.
The second is this master plan. I was on the EDC for 5 years. I won't say that we delayed every decision by any means, because that's not true. But I have been in a number of EDC meetings and a number of council meetings where there was an opportunity to make a decision, and people wisely said, I don't know if that's going to fit into our master plan.
Okay.
I don't know that we should be making that decision now, because it has a permanence in its result by what we're asking to vote on. And yet there wasn't, I don't think, adequate movement toward the master plan.
Okay.
So we have been trying to push for this master plan for, I'll say 5 years. Last year, when we got the committee together and we put the plan in place and got it adopted by the city council and started on these next steps, I said, I want to stay involved.
Yeah.
I did not need to be on council to do that.
Correct.
But since there's some things that have happened that have made me decide to go ahead and run, but that's, for me, probably the most important thing that I've got. That's my being.
Mm-hmm.
It's my makeup. I want to make sure that doesn't land on a shelf.
I got you.
I'm not saying it would with the city council.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it would. Depends on what the priorities are. I'm not saying I can keep it forefront, depending on what else is going on, even if I'm elected. But I want to make sure that it does not
fall the wayside. Yeah. I got you.
Let's stay on it. Let's get these committees together, because if you look in the plan, there are a number of suggestions. And the plan was not prescriptive. The plan was an outline, basically what we want to do to establish and protect, guide growth in these 7 quality of life areas around town, geographic areas around town. But then there's a page and a half of suggestions on that will take this. We're gonna have to address transportation. We're gonna have to address education. We're gonna have to address our aging population. We're going to have to address healthcare.
Yeah.
Each one of those is basically set up for a subcommittee or a committee of itself that gives citizens an opportunity to get involved.
Do we have those committees?
They're not established yet.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that they're going to lag. The very first thing was to get some ordinances in place because growth is happening.
Oh yeah.
And without the ordinances, we can't.
It don't stay still.
We can't guide any of it.
Yeah.
And not that I have anything against dollar stores, but I think that's a prime example of what happened up there without any ordinances. Both those dollar stores came in and clear cut those properties. And it looks like everywhere else that's been clear cut and a new building established with lots of pavement.
No.
I'm not opposed to that, but what would it have taken to preserve the old trees that were on those properties? One or two parking places?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. And it would have helped to preserve what we like about Van, the appeal, the appearance.
That's right. Oh.
You know, you were here during the the tornado. Pennsylvania Avenue used to be picturesque.
It was.
Big, mature canopy overhanging the street. And in 15 minutes, that all ended.
Yeah,
now, you and I will never see that come back.
We won't.
There's been a lot of folks that, you know, and in addition to cleaning up the mess, they have replanted trees, but it'll be for our grandchildren if trees can even last that long. Then I don't know. But that's an act of disaster, natural disaster type of thing. We can't prevent that from happening, but we can prevent the cutting of old historic trees. And I don't have to, I'm not talking about worshiping them. I believe that we were given this earth, this town, the land to steward.
Yep.
Let's just take care of it. And we do have a planned element of the ordinance that says if you cut down a tree, then you replant another one.
Yep.
Okay. It's just, I think it's just good stewardship.
You know,
taking care of stuff.
And I'm glad you just said that, because I think you've hit on a couple things that go together, and they go together like this. Van has that ordinance that if you cut a tree down, you plant another tree. But if you don't have the people watching and paying attention to a big corporation, that means they go and they find a tree farm and they put a tree right there and they've done their duty. But that's not what you're telling them to do. And it takes the people watching and saying, hold on, this is not what we're talking about. This is not what that ordinance means. This, just because that is what it says, but you have to take it into context. You don't get to plant a tree outside of town and say, hey, look, I planted you a tree.
No, we're talking on the property.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have to, and that happens a lot. I mean, the whole culture out there right now of biting the woke mentality turns into people giving lip service to this mindset that's not what it really means. And that's the good thing about Van is people, I've always felt people in Van are involved and care about each other. If you get on Facebook and you see the social media presence that Van has, a lot of times it's funny. A lot of times it's retarded. Excuse that word. My sister-in-law will kick me for that one. But a lot of times it's hilarious. But there's a lot of caring in there. You will see people after people that show up in Van and say that what they love most about Van is that we care about each other.
Right.
We interact with each other. If we see somebody need something, we reach out, and you don't see that in these other communities, in these other towns.
And that's the intent of what we're trying to do with the ordinances right now, and those committees and those policies that'll come out of those and the practices that will follow that.
So that's the second reason why you're running.
Right.
What's the third?
The third is very personal. I've spent probably the majority of my last 15, 18 years in the field of disaster and emergency response.
Yeah.
I consult in it now. I'm kind of semi-retired, I guess, but I do consult in emergency and disaster response.
As much as I see you running around and doing, I don't think that's retirement.
I've been told that I'm semi-retired.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the relaxing part of that. But, you know, I don't believe we should ever retire from something.
I don't
We
either.
need to retire to something. And for me, retirement is not, you know, a rocking chair on the front porch.
That's true.
But it is the freedom to get involved in those things that I feel that are worth an investment of time and resources in. And that's the season of life I'm in. We lived through the 2015 tornado.
Yeah.
it was never on my bucket list to survive a natural disaster.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad we did. It is on my bucket list to not have to do it again. And I would just like to make sure, to the best of my ability, talking about your third point now, that we as a community are better prepared than we were for the last one.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good that came out of it, but there was. I think there's things that we could be doing, and the city has been. Okay, the backup generators.
I saw them
in
recently.
the public buildings. I think was, and that wasn't in the budget, by the way.
Okay,
that's one of those things that the city council said, hey, we're not ready as good as well as we could be. Now, are you ever ready as you could be? That's the whole thing about emergency and disaster preparation. You want to handle the things that are the most obvious. And the deep freeze a couple years ago brought out that there was people that were cold.
Oh yeah.
And as a city, we don't have some place like if we were caught, our city buildings lost their power like the houses do. We're not in a position to help our citizens, the ones that really need help. I think at first level, families are the ones that need to help each other. The neighbors in the communities. The church has a tremendous responsibility.
Let me ask you about that, because when I was at the tornado, you just mentioned something that popped something in my brain. When I have seen the new generators on all of our public buildings. Mm-hmm. Is that extending to the churches? Is there an ordinance? Is there a push that the churches also? Yes.
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Do you know if they have?
I do not know.
That's something I feel we need to find out. And the reason I say we need to find out is because when that second tornado was supposedly on its way, my family and all the families on the street was not running for the movie house or city hall.
Right. They're going to the church.
We went to the church.
Right.
And in this community, that is what had the doors open. There was nobody up there at the city hall opening the doors up for everybody to run in there. That pastor was up there with blankets, with the doors open and telling everybody come in here. And yeah. So I'm not saying we don't need the city buildings to have this. And I definitely do, because they need to function. But I think we need to give some incentive to our bigger places that we know people are going to be at to do that as well.
I don't disagree with you. I don't know about the incentive as much as the awareness.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
I think as a community, we could be doing more than we have, or at least that I'm aware that we have, in working together to have an emergency plan. And I'm not looking at very prescriptive, but neighborhoods and community working together, communications systems.
Yeah.
And it could be just word of mouth or a cell phone contact list. I know this neighborhood that we visited last weekend. They hosted and most of the candidates. Well, they invited all of them. I think all but maybe one was there. They started very informally. Mm-hmm. My understanding, they just went door to door, said, "Hey, I'm your neighbor. We've had some incidents that we want to make sure that we're watching out for each other.
Yeah.
Let's put together a cell phone list, and then let's do something intentional." And I think theirs is monthly. They get together on a Sunday afternoon, mm-hmm. Somebody's house, and they'll have speakers come in. I think they told me the police department has been in. I think code enforcement, fire, Jeff has been in to address the neighborhood. And then I know they had the candidates in for this, for this one here. There's things that we could be doing along those lines. I think most of the churches, now I'm not talking about Van as much as the other towns that I've worked in and responded. In the last 5 years, I've responded to almost every tornado or natural disaster in the area in one capacity or another. Most of the time, it's the fire department and or the police chief that become the incident commander.
Yeah.
They know the area. But the logistics of housing, food, material distribution mm-hmm. has always, I can't think of an exception yet, has fallen to the church.
Oh, it happened here at the tornado. That was the hub.
Yeah. And that's one of the church's role mm-hmm. is being there for the community. Not just for the spiritual needs, but the physical needs. I think too often we forget about the needs of our community. And I'm not saying it has to be formalized, that this church would take on this as a lead or that one's on this as lead. But if, for instance, if we had a ministerial association where you had the contact and say, okay, guys, this has just happened. These are the needs we're going to do. And somebody say, okay, our church will take care of that. Our church will take care of that.
Yeah.
Our group, whatever will take care of that. That's normally the thing that happens in a town our size.
Yes.
You get someplace like Tyler, Longview, they have big documents that say, in the event of, here's the call order for different things. This group will take care of logistics. This, we don't need any of that formal by any means. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't do a good job. I don't think we did the best job in 2015. I think we've learned a lot, and I think there's been an awareness level that it's happened to us before. We shouldn't repeat those same mistakes. That's the third point. I just would like to, and I'm not saying we're not ready, but I would like to make sure that we are as ready as practically possible.
So your 3 points, the 3 points you're running concisely is, one,
to support our current administration and what they're doing.
Yeah. And then 2 is to make sure that the comprehensive plan
doesn't lay fallow.
Yeah.
And third is to help to ensure that as best as I can that we're better prepared if and when the next. Those
are commendable. I mean, from me sitting here, I mean, when I originally talked to you, a lot of the things that me and you talked about the comprehensive plan, about the plan for Van, I was not familiar with a lot of that. I actually started this whole asking you guys to come on the podcast because I wanted to know if we were going to get a pool back. Okay. And then it turned into, well, a pool's not necessarily economics. Where are we going with the town? We need basketball courts before we need a pool. Y'all have all spun my mindset in what we're doing to a whole nother level. And I'm glad I asked y'all to come on because I didn't know you when we started this. And I don't feel like half the people that's voting know the people that's running and knowing why y'all are running or even what's going on with our town. And that's one of the things that I think is a big issue with our town is we really don't know what's going on. Our website for Van is not that great. It's not that updated. I recently found out, and I thought it was happening, that you can't go online and watch a city council meeting. And that's something that I feel like needs to change. We have a good social media presence. I mean, definitely have a good social media presence.
We have an effective one. I won't agree with you that it's good.
Yeah,
we do have an effective one.
We're growing, and that's why I really appreciate all y'all coming on, and because you're allowing people to understand more. There's more discussion on what's going on, and the spot you're going for. There's 4 other people or 3 other people. There's 3 other people running for that, and to me, that's a big thing because normally you don't have that kind of turnout. A lot of the races have went uncontested in the past. Yeah,
and it's yet to be seen what the turnout looks like. But I would hope for the betterment of Van that we have a record turnout.
Well, I think it's going to be, but I know in the past it's like 200 people are the only is the voting capacity.
I think it was the last election. I heard the numbers within the last week. Could have been the election before, but there's only 213 people that came out. And people say, "Well, I don't participate in local elections." Well, I'd like to challenge anybody that's listening. Who affects your life on the day-to-day more than your local government?
You're right. You're exactly right.
Okay. Your state, your regional, your national. Yeah, those are trickle down and those are big, overarching type of influences. But the day-to-day, those that influence you on what you do from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, that's local.
Whether your water's on, how much your sewage costs, all that is local.
That. Yep. So to me, local is the more important.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from any election process. It's a right of ours. I think it's a responsibility of ours. And having lived in different places around the world, I can tell you that we take for granted something as easy for us to go in and vote our conscience on have a say in.
And voting's at the city hall.
On the 7th.
On the
election
7th.
day, it'll be at City Hall.
Okay.
Starting Monday, I think it's just for 1 week or 10 days. I can't remember for sure. Early voting is up in Canton.
Okay, so you can early vote in Canton, and then the actual election day voting is the 7th at City Hall.
Yes.
Okay. All right, do you got anything else you want to get out here?
No, I think.
I mean, you did a good job. You covered a lot.
Well, you're a good facilitator.
You definitely covered a lot. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Me and you could probably stay on here and talk about all kinds of things because you have a layer that you're seeing that is there's a lot of stuff going on, and that I don't think everybody's realizing all the stuff that's going on because you're not just talking about finishing a new street or what street's going to get done this year. Are we getting a basketball goal at the new park? There's
I don't know any of that stuff.
But that's a layer of what's going to happen and what's got to be thought about as we move forward. I mean, do we add apartment complexes or do we build new homes? Do we residential an area or do we set it for an industrial? These type of things is what you're looking at in a bigger sphere. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate you, Clyde.
So everybody
somebody that hadn't even met.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks ago, we stopped in for a cup of coffee and said, hey, I think we should get to know each other.
And I appreciate it. I'm going to tell you, you've changed my mind on where I see our town going. And I could clearly live somewhere else. I drive a long way, my commute. I'm here because of my kids, but I'm also here because this is where I was raised at. And my community has always turned out every time I've needed something. And I've tried to repay that. And I'm going to be honest, I feel like I'm in debt to my community because of all the times they turned out. This house right here got hit with a tornado and people was everything I needed. It's always been that way. That's fine.
Community historically has always risen for each other. Yep. And even though we're going through a season right now of volunteerism on the decline for your committees and your long-term things, I still believe, certainly for East Texas, and I would say for most of America, that in the times of need and disaster, folks are there.
Yeah.
They may not think they have the time to sit on a committee and rifle through, 100 and some pages of ordinances and try to make it better. But if there's something, trees down in your yard or there's something going on, your neighbor's going to be there.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, Mark. Hey, everybody, get out to vote. When's the voting?
Early voting starts Monday in Canton, and then May 7th at City Hall is the general election.
May 7th, y'all. Thank you.
All right.
We're done.